Good morning. In this video, we're going to take the Sony A6700 with the 18-135 kit lens and put it to the test doing some landscape photography with it. Stay tuned. In this video, we brought the Sony A6700 with the 18-135 kit lens out to see if it holds up to landscape photography. We've come about 20 minutes from my house to a place called Ozone Falls in Cumberland County, Tennessee. The flow is not too bad this morning. It's just about sunrise, a little bit after sunrise. There's nobody here. Anyways, I also brought the Nikon Z6ii with both the 14-30 f4 and the 24-70 f4 lenses to do a comparison, try to set them up side by side, do some comparison shots. The Nikon Z6ii and those two lenses are my main landscape rig. So we're kind of going to see what the Sony will do against the Nikon cameras. And we're going to show those photographs in the video, and I will go through my editing process for those photographs in the video also. So stay tuned to the end of the video. Those of you that might want to know this, today I'm vlogging with my DJI Pocket 2. I have the Creator Combo with the wireless mic, and that's mainly what I use when I'm out doing this kind of photography. So in case you wanted to know, that's what I'm using today. I made it down to the bottom of Ozone Falls, and right now what I'm doing is scouring around looking for a composition that's unique that I have not seen before or I have not shot before. I come down here quite a bit, so I've shot just about all these different angles, but I'm sure there's one more composition that I have not found, and I'm going to search for that now. All right, I believe I found a composition that I like to perform this test of this Sony A6700 with the 18-135. Now, I'm at 18 millimeters, and I just barely got the whole waterfall in the frame. So one thing I like about this Sony compared to my Nikon is the rear display panel. You can grab this panel and you can flip it out and you can see your composition just like that without having to get behind the camera. The Nikon doesn't do that. It just flips out and down. That's it. It doesn't articulate around. So we're on the basic landscape settings that I talked about in a previous video, and I will put a link to that video up here, and there'll be another link at the end of this video so you can go back and watch how I set this camera up for landscape. So I changed my settings from my base setting, from my memory, which is memory location number 1 for my landscape stuff. And I've changed the exposure to 2 seconds and took the lens to f11 aperture. The ISO is 100. I'm going to make a photograph here with no polarizer filter on the front of this. This is the first shot, the first landscape shot I've done with this camera. I went ahead and I'm in single shot mode. I went ahead and set a 5-second timer on this to eliminate any kind of camera shake. Okay, that was just a quick shot. I'm gonna move my camera around a little bit and see if I can find a different composition to show you. This is not perfect, but it does have a lot of elements in it: the rocks, the leaves in the tree, and the water. And I just kind of wanted to show you a comparison here. So I'm gonna move around, see if I can find something else to shoot. Sometimes all you need to do is move a few feet And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk right over here just a few feet to here, and I'm going to set my tripod up right in this location. It gives me a better view of the falls from here. I'm going to move my Pocket 2 over closer so you can see me better. So before I move the Pocket 2, I'm going to take a short video here to show you my vlogging setup to do out here in landscapes. And I'm using a platypod. So what I got is the platypod, and on the platypod I have a Leophoto ball head, and I mounted my DJI selfie stick that came with my Osmo Action 3, and it has a 1/4 inch thread on the bottom, so I just threaded it into the platypod. I'll get a little closer here so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is my kind of my setup. I'm using the little rock screws to level the base. This adds quite a bit of weight to this, and I hope it keeps it from blowing over. I did have an incident not too long ago where I had my phone mounted to this selfie stick with a small set of tripods, and it fell over. The wind blew it over. Anyway, we're going to move this now into a different location. So I've moved to a different composition, and since I already had the Nikon Z6 set up, I'm going to use it first, and I'm going to place it on the tripod. I'm going to leave the exposure at the same 6 seconds. I kind of like this composition a little bit better. Let's make sure I'm level here. It's always important, I think, to level your camera in the field, and that way you're dead on. And that's just what I do. I hit the display button and get the leveler on there and make sure it's level. So at 24 millimeters, I'm too close to the waterfall to do this test. I won't get the whole falls in there, so I need to back up some. So I think what I'm going to have to do is place my camera back here towards this rock. So I'm going to take the camera off just to be safe, because I'm going to have to maneuver it, and I'm just going to set it down right up there. Okay, I'm going to move the tripod into a further back position. I need to be careful because this is how I've messed up before and dropped a lens and a camera in the creek. Okay, now what we're going to do is test this again, and we are going to do the Sony at 18 millimeters, but the Nikon at 24 millimeters. That's because the Sony's a crop sensor and the Nikon's a full frame. So I'm going to take a shot here. 5-second timer. Five-second shot. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to leave the Nikon Z6ii on here for a minute. I've reduced the exposure to 2 seconds. Okay, and now it's a little bit better histogram, and I'm going to take this photograph and then I'm going to switch over to the Sony and do the same thing, do a 2-second shot. Hey, one of the confusing things is using the Nikon and then using the Sony, because the buttons on the back are completely different. The menus are different. This whole thing is different. It's all foreign language to me. But we're out here testing it to see how it looks. It's a real world field test. So we're at 18 millimeters, and I'm going to go down to we're going to go down to 2 seconds, the same as the Nikon. Make sure the polarizer's dialed in, and we're going to focus in the same spot, and it's on a 5-second timer. One thing I just noticed, Nikons don't save that setting. When you turn the camera off, it goes back away from the timer setting. This one, hold on to it when I turn the camera off. I like that. Okay, we'll get those in the computer and compare them now. This first image is out of the Z6ii. You'll notice that the full frame sensor, we get a bigger field of view even at the 24 millimeter settings. And this next image is out of the Sony, and you notice with the crop of 16:9, this was the best I could do with this one. So there is some differences there. As far as sharpness goes, I couldn't really tell a whole lot of difference between the two of them. Later on, I will explain my editing process for these two images. This will conclude the field test of this. So far, I kind of like this Sony rig. It's lightweight, it's easy to maneuver. I like the articulating screen. I don't see me getting away from the Nikon Z6ii though. I just like that camera. It's just a workhorse for me. And I actually got two of them, a spare body. So anyways, that was the test at Ozone Falls. And I hope you enjoyed that. And if you liked the video and you felt like the content was worth it to you, give it a thumbs up, please. And as always, subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with all my future videos that I do. Thanks for coming along. Ozone Falls, Cumberland County, Tennessee. Well, thanks for coming along today. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up for me. It just takes a second and it's free to do. You just reach down there and click the little thumbs up button. It'll help my channel grow in a way that I want it to. And if you want to keep up with my adventures this fall and in the future, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Always looking forward to meeting new people. Comments are always welcome, good or bad. Leave me a comment if you want to talk about some things. We can talk about some things. And I really appreciate everybody coming to my channel and watching. So from Ozone Falls in Cumberland County, Tennessee, have a good day. See ya. So, in conclusion, is the Sony 18-135 3.5 to 5.6 OSS lens worth having? Well, it just depends on your situation. This lens came in a kit form, and if you bought this retail, it would be over $500. But buying it in kit form, I got it for about $300. So I wanted a knock around lens, a walk around lens, and it seemed like a good focal range. And it's almost a good enough focal range to do waterfall photography that I do, the kind I do. So my recommendation is, you know, if this is the only lens you're going to purchase, and you just want something that you want to walk around and take vacation photos with, and just an everyday kind of lens, this is probably an okay lens. It's sharp. It's not real sharp, but it's sharp. It does a fairly good job of everything else. If I was going to use it for serious landscape work, I would probably look at something else. I'm not too sure I would pick this lens for that option. You know, I compared it to my Z mount lenses, my 24-70, my 14-30. Both of those are f4 lenses. Both of those are excellent glass, but that's a whole different class of lenses, a whole different manufacturer. We're just talking about the 18-135. So my recommendation is, if you need something for real serious landscape work, I would not purchase this lens. I would probably do something different, okay? Am I going to keep it? Sure, I'm going to keep it. I'll use it for everyday type of stuff and street photography and things like that. If I'm going to do anything for landscape, I'll probably look at another option, and I'll probably do some renting before I buy anything. Anyways, that's my opinion, and my opinion alone. If you have your own opinion, leave me a comment. We'll talk about it. I'm always willing to learn new things, okay? So, thanks a lot. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. Break. Here we are in Lightroom, and we're going to start off with the Z6ii image, the NEF file, and this is a 2-second exposure, at 24 millimeters. And then we're going to look at the Sony photograph in its raw state. And this is a Sony image at 18 millimeters, which should convert to 24 millimeters crop sensor. Dealing with full sensor here, crop sensor here. There's a little bit of difference, and it might be in just the settings that I had to zoom on the lens. Anyways, both of these were at their minimum focus, minimum focus, which would have been 24 millimeters on the 24 to 70. What we're going to do here is start with the editing process. I wanted to show you my edit for this. And I'm going to start off in the basic tab. And right away, I'm just going to hit the auto button under tone control. And let Lightroom select that. I normally edit this way. Let Lightroom do it first. And then I'll tweak it from there. So right now I noticed, I'm going to start off by looking at the water. The water's a little blue for me. And what I need to do is kind of tone that down some. I'm probably going to desaturate that. So I'm going to select the mask tool, go to color range, hit color range, and I'm going to click on some of the water. And it actually picks some of the wall behind it there. And I'm going to go ahead and do that too. I'm going to go ahead and use that. Let me see if I can do a refine here. Maybe we'll do that. Just slide the refiner down a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just reduce the saturation of the water to get it less blue. There wasn't a whole lot of waterfall that day. I'm sure this is a white balance issue. And one of the things I noticed is the cloudy white balance that Nikon selects is not the same Kelvin as Sony's. And I'm going to go ahead and lighten these shadows up down in here. So I'm going to do another mask, and I'm going to do objects, and I'm going to paint in this area right here like this. Oops, missed it. You don't have to be perfect with this. It does a pretty good job of selecting the area inside the red. And I will increase the shadows a little, bring those up, and the whites, and bring the blacks down just a hair. And it looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit touch more exposure. Now, if you'll notice, when I selected this object, it also selected some of this tree right here. Well, I don't want that selected, so I'm going to go back to the mask, and I'm going to subtract. I'm going to use the brush tool to subtract this area right here. As I brush that in and hold the mouse button down, you'll see it's removing it from that. And I believe I'm going to go down here to this tree trunk down here and remove some of that. Okay, that's not too bad. Anyways, that's kind of like a basic edit for this here. I'm going to put a little bit of sharpening on it. So I'm going to close the mask tool, and we'll go down to details. And I'm going to increase my sharpening to 40. And I do my radius at 0.5 and my detail at 100. And then I select the mask pointer, holding down your Alt key or Option key on a Mac, and you just slide that to the right. We just want the edges of all these items to be sharpened. That's it. This was at ISO 100, so there's no denoise that needs to be done to it. So now we're going to move over to the Sony image, and it's pretty much kind of the same kind of editing going on here. So why don't we go back to the Nikon image, and let's just sync them together. So I'm going to select both images. I'm going to click on the sync button right here, and I'm going to check all. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take the masking too, see what it does. And let's just hit synchronize. And what it's going to do, it's going to make both of these photos have the same edits. This one and that one. And it doesn't look too bad, really. I mean, when you start looking at it, there's some masking problems right here in the Sony. So why don't we reverse what we just did by Control Z, and let's select them again, and let's go back into the sync, but let's turn the masking part of it off, and let's just synchronize the basic stuff. And if we come over here to the Sony image, this is the Nikon image that we edited, this is the Sony image, and it did a fairly good job. We need to fix this water. again. Of course, everything's been carried over to this image. And we're going to go up here to the masking. And the masking was carried over too. Okay, so we need to fix this mask. Mask 2 is the problem. We hit the subtract, brush, and we'll brush all that. I'm not going to be perfect here. I'm just showing you what you could do. Okay, take all that out. And collapse that. And as you can see, this is the Nikon image. This is the Sony image. Now let's punch in and look at sharpness real quick. I'm going to go in 100% there. And this is the Nikon image. And you look at these edges right here on that. And then we're going to do the same thing on the Sony image. We're going to look at those edges there. What I'm seeing here is the Sony image is probably a little bit softer than the Nikon image. But you know, that's kind of expected. And we're just out on this edge right here. We're not way out on the edges. We can look right down here at the place where I focus, which is right there, dead on that rock. And when we look at the Nikon image, pull that down. This is the Nikon image. This is the Sony image. I want to go to full screen here so you can see both of them. This is the Sony image. This is the Nikon image. I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference here, okay? It's really negligible. And, you know, folks, what you really need to ask yourself is, if we're posting these photographs to social media, I mean, it's not real critical, this kind of sharpness and stuff. Get it as good as you can. Now, if you're going to print this image, that would be a whole different story. You'd really want to work on it. But for social media, this is about all I do to my images. Okay, I may punch it up a little bit and put a little glamour glow in there or something, or change the texture, some of the greens and what have you. But this is not even this is not one of my best ozone fall images. So anyways, I just wanted you to see my editing process and what I go through.